is Dr. Anu Ramaswamy. Dr. Ramaswamy is a professor of civil and environmental engineering at the Princeton Institute for International and Regional Studies and the High Plains Environmental Institute. Dr. Ramaswamy is an interdisciplinary environmental engineer recognized as a pioneer and leader on the topic of sustainable urban infrastructure systems. Dr. Ramaswamy received her PhD and MS degrees in civil engineering and engineering from Carnegie Mellon University and a BS in chemical engineering at IIT Madras. Welcome, Dr. Ramaswamy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here, and I'm going to be talking about research and education relating to social equity in sustainable urban infrastructure systems. And I want to acknowledge and thank our project supported by the U.S. National Science Foundation. This is the Sustainable Healthy Cities Research Network. And the next slide shows you that our network includes city policymakers. Since 2007, you can see in this picture, we've been collaborating with cities. And the interest from cities in infrastructure and social equity comes from many dimensions. Cities are increasingly looking at equity across multiple agendas: carbon mitigation, regional transportation planning with new technologies, food action planning, and of course now COVID, adaptation to COVID. And urban systems are where people, infrastructure, and the environment intersect. And there's extremely high levels of inequality, both in determinants as well as in outcomes, health and well-being. And so far, most of the work has been done in sectors. And the goal of our project was to bring multiple sectors together with multiple stakeholders, and in a very interdisciplinary way, which is the heart of convergence. And you see all of our partners here from several cities in our workshops. The next slide shows the framework we co-developed with cities. And here you can see the 7 essential provisioning systems: energy, buildings, mobility, connectivity, food, water, sanitation, and waste management, and public spaces. These physical systems interact, next click. These physical systems interact with social provisionings, primarily, of course, healthcare, but also education, all of which have been impacted in this pandemic. And these together shape final societal outcomes. Several clicks. So the first one, of course, is environment and sustainability, human health and well-being, economy and security. And our group is studying equity, the next click, as inequality and fairness, both in the determinants and in the outcomes. And we call these the final societal outcomes that we're working with cities. Next click, please. We're working with cities on tracking long-term. And so we want to be conscious about long-term outcomes tracking with cities versus what engineers study. Next click, please, which is features of a place. So we can say what makes a place resilient, and we have all these latent features of places, what makes it livable, what makes it resource efficient, but keeping our eye on the ball that we really want to figure out what cities should be tracking human data, what types of human data would you be tracking long-term. So this has resulted, next slide, in a lot of really interesting projects across our network, which has 8 universities. And the projects are all co-developed with our community partners who've helped us with data. And at the core, we have a data framework. We have an interdisciplinary data framework, which you see over here. And we can just go through several clicks in sequence, and you can see work on access, work on consumption, keep going, work on inequality in spatial patterns of energy use, air pollution and health in Atlanta. Next slide. Well-being, we're actually measuring well-being. What does well-being mean? How do you measure it? How do you look at inequality in it? And co-producing metrics so that utilities can use them to shape investments. The next slides just give you a quick example. We're working, for example, we've characterized inequality in Indian cities. These are data from 10 Indian cities on floor area, electricity use, LPG, and you can actually see factor of 3 to 10 differences between the highest income and the lowest income households in several of these cities. And tracking multiple cities allows you then to figure out theories. Why are some cities more or less equal? the next click shows you work we've recently done with a very nice data set on energy use, looking at intra-urban inequality. And the bottom line is that through fine scale data, we're finding inequality by income and race much higher than what was previously understood. Because we just didn't have the data, I guess the partnerships with utilities really help us get fine scale data. And the next few slides, really, we can just go through them. We're working on food action planning. The next slide shows, again, data are not available. We move to the next slide. We actually developed new approaches to address food insecurity. So you see here long lines for food insecurity. We're working to find out how much backyard and community gardening can actually help food insecurity, which in fact causes obesity and other comorbidities with COVID. And then the very last slide shows that we're developing new approaches to tag household gardens. You're seeing a lot of inequality by income that you can see in the graph. And we've actually seen almost a doubling of gardening between 2017 summer and 2020. So just click, and then the last slide is just thanking our network if you click on the next slide. So thank you and welcome questions during discussion.